Harmeet, good to see you again. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Sean.
Listen, I know this might be out of your realm, but it's the news of the day, this tragic shooting down there in Dallas of these ICE agents. I guess if there's anything that's more civil rights, it's our ability to live freely. And when you look at this from your perch at DOJ, is this just a straight murder case, or do you guys look at it and say, if you're targeting a federal employee, that's a violation of civil rights, or is there another division? Like, how does DOJ look at what is clearly appearing, and I get it, it's early, appearing to look like a targeting of ICE agents or any federal employee for that matter?
Right. Well, there are several layers here. First of all, there are human beings involved, and we care at the DOJ about any loss of life or attack on an American. Secondly, this is not an isolated incident in the sense that we've seen news about coordinated, organized attacks by Antifa and similar groups against ICE facilities on the West Coast. We've seen them for years, particularly in Portland. You see some in Seattle. Of course, there's a big presence in Los Angeles, and there's a lot of immigration enforcement activity happening there. So I don't want to prejudge the facts here, but I think it is indisputable that there are organized left-wing groups in this country who are calling for violence against our ICE officials. You see soft permission, tacit approval in a way being given by some of the conduct of our federal elected representatives on the left as well, who use very divisive rhetoric about ICE. You see the governor of California denouncing ICE officials going about their business to keep our country safe and remove people from the country who aren't here legally. And then people take cues from that. So I think every elected official on both sides needs to understand that their rhetoric can inspire crazy people or bad people to do things. But secondly, we do have organized anarchist, nihilistic left-wing groups in this country that will not hesitate to use violence and have been using it for many years now without any pushback from the federal government.
Totally agree. I guess the question that I want to get at, though, is that when the DOJ looks at this, and there's a targeting of a federal official, like in this case, an ICE agent, is that, how do you guys, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this because I don't know your parlance. Like, when I watch a lot of TV, it's like, oh, if it's a major case, according to Law and Order, that goes to major case squad. If it's a big important person, it goes special victims unit. That's my Law and Order understanding of the legal system. So I apologize up front. But when someone takes out or tries to kill an ICE agent, is that just a straight up case, or do you guys tack on like a violation of civil rights? Like, yeah, I don't, so, where does that realm come in where you say, okay, this is what I do?
So the Civil Rights Division's jurisdiction over violent crime is mainly related to protected characteristics under the Civil Rights Act. So that would include race, sex, national origin, veteran status, and age, and some others. There are other statutes that talk about interference with federal law enforcement officials doing their duty. There are conspiracy statutes. There are RICO statutes. And so I do think that there are other people in the building here who have the ability, both in the U.S. attorney's offices throughout the country, as well as here in our, what we call Big Crim, the criminal division here, who have the ability, if the facts line up, to have additional charges based on the targeting of law enforcement officials. But that's not something that the Civil Rights Division as such would do unless that law enforcement official targeted happened to have been targeted because of one of those protected characteristics under the Civil Rights Act.
Okay, that's what I was getting at. So if you're not part of that, then that would go to another division or stay within the U.S. Attorney's Office, for example, in Dallas.
Yeah, that's right. They will be investigating. Not to give away anything that's not obvious, they'll be looking at documents, communications, what this person reviewed online, and follow the threads. That's happening now in multiple tragic settings here in the United States in the last few months.
Okay, but if an individual in Texas kills another individual in Texas, two just citizens, I assume that stays within the jurisdiction of Texas. But because this individual targeted an ICE agent in an ICE facility, does that in and of itself legally make it a federal issue?
Well, yes. Attacks on federal law enforcement officials are absolutely federal issues. That's one point. The other point is, even if a crime is committed within the state of Texas between two people who are in Texas, that doesn't exempt it from federal law enforcement. There are numerous predicates that could apply, like transportation of a weapon, use of the wires, transportation of a person across state lines, and of course, a federal hate crime. So there are a number of different ways that something can become a federal law enforcement matter.
Hey guys, I hope you're enjoying this conversation, but if you're looking for a way to get to sleep tonight and stay asleep, I've got the answer for you. For over a year, I've been taking Beam's Dream Powder. It has made a world of difference. I fall asleep faster, I stay asleep, and I wake up ready to go. If you want to join me by taking one scoop every night before you get to bed, go to shopbeam.com/Spicer. Use code word Spicer at checkout for up to 40% off. Trust me, everything stems from a great night's sleep. Go to shopbeam.com/Spicer, code word Spicer. You mentioned the rhetoric. If I'm out there, I mean, we've had obviously a lot of tragic shootings the last several months. I mean, going back to President Trump's assassination attempt, the tragedy involving Charlie Kirk, and now this. If you are someone out there that has been advocating attacking ICE agents, condoning it, to your point about the rhetoric, does that reach a threshold at some point where they could be charged for a crime if they did something to incite that, or is that protected free speech?
Yeah, so good question. Merely denouncing federal law enforcement is protected speech. Plotting and being an instrumentality, helping obtain weapons, helping organize cover, helping organize distractions to commit a crime, active participation in a crime, is a different thing. So we don't criminalize speech in this country. And the concept of incitement to violence must mean imminent incitement to violence. And that setting is usually in a big crowd setting, like historically a Klan rally, where someone is calling for a bunch of racists to go lynch a nearby Black person. That's imminent incitement to violence. This is what we're talking about here is, it's 2025. People are using the internet. They're organizing things. They're traveling. They're obtaining weapons from third parties. They're crossing state lines. They're perhaps have collaborators. I know from my extensive work on Antifa issues that they have national leaders who are itinerant. They travel around and create havoc in different states. They stay on the go. There are a lot of different terror cells. This is very complex. It isn't the usual gang type work. It's just a whole different level. And that's one reason why it's being treated differently now.
When I in the last week, we hear a lot of people saying both sides need to take down the rhetoric. Political violence on both sides is a problem. And yet over the weekend, well before this shooting today, I was watching people throw rocks and bottles at ICE agents in their vehicles. It seems like that is acceptable. I mean, you commented on this with respect to the left. It seems like they want to tone it down right now because of Charlie Kirk's assassination, but yet I don't see any of them. And again, I'm not trying to accuse them because maybe I just don't see it, admittedly. But I haven't heard any political leader, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, et cetera, say you should not take out your differences with the federal government and ICE by throwing bottles or rocks at ICE agents or government property.
No, they're not. I mean, we've seen Democrat senators and members of Congress try to barge their way into ICE facilities. They're kind of, like I said, modeling bad behavior when it comes to federal law enforcement. That goes beyond protest. It goes into intimidation and obstruction. And those are not permitted on federal property or with federal law enforcement. And so this both sidesism, you and I both know, Sean, that is a bunch of BS. Okay. We don't see that kind of violence on one side. We didn't see a single glass window get broken in America in response to my friend Charlie Kirk's assassination, which deeply affected tens of millions of Americans. So this both sidesism is fake, and it's time for the mainstream media to stop using it.
I know you were close to Charlie. You guys worked closely on a lot of issues. From a personal standpoint, Harmeet, if you can take your DOJ hat off for a second, I'm amazed. I knew Charlie. We weren't best friends. We texted. We did some events. but I was personally moved in a way that I haven't been. And I'm evolving and sort of really trying to understand the full impact of what he did and why so many people have been moved by his assassination. As you have sort of processed this in the last 10 days or so, what have you come up to a conclusion why Charlie had such an impact on so many people?
Well, Charlie was really unique, and I've known him for, I think 2017 is probably the first time I met him. And look, we're of a certain generation, Sean. And so Charlie is a lot younger. And, the initial assumption is like, what is this young person going to teach me? Right. But he was extraordinary in that way, that he actually had so much to offer, and he was unique and independent. And I think that one thing that is deeply lacking in this country, but people feel it's lack, is a commitment and publicly proclaiming your faith. I mean, the country was founded on that. It's a very important principle in our Constitution and our Declaration of Independence. And yet our country has drifted away from that. And Charlie unashamedly proclaimed his faith, and also was not just sort of faith-based esoteric and divorced from the public sphere, but actually putting those principles into action, into helping people with good values get elected at every level. I mean, the thing that I most closely worked on with Charlie and his team was challenging the leadership for the Republican National Committee. And that was a very big challenge. And most of the mainstream did not support us. And Charlie and his team did, because they had a vision of the youth of this country and what it will be like for them if we simply cede so much ground to apathy, incompetence, and neglect. And so that was really inspiring. And his events have galvanized and just made it cool for so many young people to openly say they're conservative. And on college campuses today, it's often not cool, but when you have a group of young people doing it, suddenly people get strength from that. And so I think a lot of what you're seeing in this last couple of weeks is some people's regret, frankly, that they haven't been more outspoken and faithful. I think his example has inspired a lot of people to courage to come forward and be who they are and be better than who they were yesterday. And I just think that is just a transformative thing you just don't see very often in life. And I mean, there won't be another Charlie Kirk, but I hope his example inspires courage and bravery in young and older people to be more authentic and be more principled in their daily lives.
Yeah, I agree. Well said, because I had the same, I'm looking at him and I'm going, I'm 23 years older than him. I've been in this game, I felt like the old man yelling from my lawn. Like I was like, I know how to do this. I don't need to be told. And it was funny because during the campaign, there was a reporter, I think it was from Mother Jones, and the guy's calling me and he said, Sean, you've been at the RNC, you were there for 3 cycles, and Charlie Kirk is trying to sell people on this, snake oil that they know how to do turnout. And I can't see the results. And Charlie, and it was mostly over text, although we did have a couple of conversations, he was laughing and he's just like, this guy's going to be so blown away by what we do. And it was funny because I knew Charlie well enough that I didn't doubt him. I mean, like, if any other 31-year-old told me I'd put together this app that's going to do all this turnout stuff, I would have been like, oh, dude, I don't want to hear it. And yet I had seen Charlie's track record enough that I was like, I'm not going to bet against this guy. And he was just so, like, I was like, what do you want me to say to this reporter? And he was just like, just tell him we're going to show you on election day what I'm talking about. And it was, I was like, dude, this guy's like, there's very few people, never mind a 31-year-old, they're about to back it up like that.
Yeah, no, I agree. And so, and that was my experience too. I work closely with those folks in a number of different jurisdictions, of course, before I joined the DOJ, and now I have a different role. But even in this role, I met with Charlie here in this office just a few weeks before he died. And he was passionately engaged at that conversation, not in politics, but in what we can do in the federal government today to make the lives of the next generations safer and better and more free. And we had a great conversation about that. And he would send, some suggestions of things I should look at. And, I found that very useful. And so I'm a little different than the average government official at this level. I do take in information from all different sources. We still vet it. But I think that's one reason why we've been able to move so quickly on some of the most important issues of our time is the information flow is non-traditional.
Yeah, especially all the way through the highest levels of government. It's very funny how people will ask me, like President Trump will be like, "What do you think?" And I'm like, I don't know about, like, he loves it. Everybody, he brings this level of curiosity to all the people, like including you, that come in and say, I'm not going to just take tunnel vision to this issue. I'm going to invite other things. Something that you said, though, struck me a moment ago. You were talking about the jurisdiction of your office, the Civil Rights Bureau, and those classes that you look at: veterans, people of different colors and ethnicities, women, I assume. But Charlie was killed for his political beliefs. As we look at someone's civil rights, and you've been at this a long time, should we add political views to that list?
Well, very good question. That is for the legislature. But I will say that in California, before I took this job, political affiliation was a protected characteristic under the state civil rights laws when it came to certain categories, including public accommodations and employment, importantly. And so I was able to sue in California. I know that whoever wrote that statute probably didn't think some right-wing conservative lawyer is going to come in and use the statute to protect the rights of conservative tech workers in Silicon Valley. It was meant to protect labor organizers and others like that, but the law is for everyone. And so I did use it that way. And so certainly on some of these statutes, we have housing laws, we have employment discrimination, we have some other forms of discrimination, redlining under banking. None of these currently at the federal level include political affiliation explicitly as a protected characteristic. And so I think that would be something to look at legislatively. If I were in the legislature, I've suggested it to people in the past, and that's not my role now to suggest legislation, but it would certainly expand the ability of the federal government. Of course, then I'd need to hire some more lawyers to do the job. And as it is, we're kind of not fully staffed yet. So we're working on that.
Well, since you brought that up, there's been a concern that I've heard where agencies throughout the government, but in particular DOJ, aren't getting the resources they need. Is this a confirmation issue? Is it a DOJ issue? Why are you guys not getting the resources you need?
It's not a confirmation issue because the level of people at the Senate confirmed level is kind of my level and above, and that's not really the issue. The issue is it's a complex issue. A lot of the people in the government have been there for a long time and weren't particularly effective or hardworking. And frankly, during COVID, a lot of people were phoning it in. And so those people leaving, particularly those who didn't want to do the program that we have set here in our new administration, it's fine for them to leave. But then there is an extraordinary amount of red tape and bureaucracy to hire people. And the DOJ stuff has also caused big budget cuts to agencies. And so I personally, of course, I'm a partisan. I don't think that the Department of Justice is one of those departments that should be shrunk or cut. If anything, we need more federal law enforcement on so many different areas. And so that's my personal opinion, not speaking for anybody. I would love more resources. And, certainly in the building, I get support from my leadership, the Attorney General and Todd Blanche, the Deputy Attorney General. They're supportive of all the work that we do in the Civil Rights Division, but there's just a lot of bureaucracy and red tape. For example, to hire career attorneys here, we are going through a process that was set 20 years ago, which is fine, that only career attorneys can interview career candidates. So I and my political appointees here are not involved in that hiring process. But guess what? My good career attorneys are actually prosecuting hate crimes, prosecuting redlining, prosecuting discrimination, going after these colleges that are violating the civil rights of applicants and employees. We're all super busy drinking from a hose, working overtime, and frankly, burning out. And so, resources are absolutely important for the job to be done correctly. And so as hopefully we get out of, the sort of this chaos of people leaving and, now hiring back people, I'm hopeful that ultimately we will right-size this operation. But the work is still being done. It's just being done by fewer people who are working harder and longer.
It's funny because there is a stigma around a lot of the work of federal employees. And I know a lot of these folks. I've been in and out of government, and there's a lot that actually work their tails off. And I think they sometimes get wrongly lumped into this notion that you check in at 10 and are out the door by 3 if you're not working remote to begin with. So I appreciate you saying that, because it's a reminder that there are really good people in government working really hard without a ton of recognition or frankly, compensation.
That's right. This building is full of people who come in before 8 and who are here at their desks past 7. I'm one of those people some days, but when I go home, I'm still working the remaining waking hours because the job is a huge one, and it's on weekends too. And every one of these political appointees, almost every one of the political appointees who came from outside, or the skilled 20 and 30-year prosecutors, could be making 2 to 10 times as much in the private sector. And so I think people do need to remember that. I see a lot of nasty comments online sometimes. I say, oh, we just got this victory. And the people are like, good, why don't you get off your butt and do this other thing? No one's on their butt here. Everyone is working really hard.
Good to know. Yeah, no more nasty comments to DOJ or Harmeet. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.